The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com, IgnitionAPG.com, PlayUSA at PLAEUSA.com, and Sorinex Exercise Equipment at Sorinex.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 162. Excited to have Matt Mancz with us today. Matt is the strength coach for the men's and women's lacrosse teams at Syracuse. And, you know, quite honestly, just growing up in the Midwest, lacrosse is a sport that I haven't known a whole lot about, but really kind of taking it up a little bit recently because my kids have gotten interested in it, and I've gotten to know a lot of different strength coaches that have worked with the sport. So I wanted to have Matt on. Obviously, Syracuse is a powerhouse when it comes to lacrosse. We get into their program, kind of how they make that unique. Some of the things that he does from a team building standpoint and things like that. I mean, he's a former football player that got kind of started working with lacrosse, and how he's brought a little bit of that mentality to training and the whole deal. And so, real excited to bring you this episode. Before we do, though, we want to make sure we recognize our sponsor, PlayUSA. As you guys know, I've talked about Play for the last several years and just so impressed with the company, so impressed with the innovation and where they're taking the company as a whole, their commitment to performance and education, and just think the world of them. And so if you're in the market for sports flooring, I would definitely check them out. It's not even close when it comes to product value and product just overall quality. And I couldn't say enough great things about Play as a company, as a product, but also more importantly the people. So definitely check them out. Play USA, play.us. And follow all the things that they have going on. All right, I want to get to this episode with Matt. Sit back and enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. Excited to have Matt Mancz with us from Syracuse. He came highly recommended from a former intern of both of ours, Adam Smith, who's now with the Anaheim Angels and doing great things, and we think the world of. But obviously, we played Syracuse quite a few times when I was at South Florida, and every time that I would go up there, there's a big banner in the dome that has Jim Brown, in lacrosse. And growing up in the Midwest, I never really was around it, and so Matt is, running the program for the lacrosse programs there at Syracuse, and they're obviously routinely, top 5 every year, and
usually in there, yeah.
And doing fantastic things. But man, I wanted to have you on the show, talk a little bit about that. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks so much.
Coach, it's truly an honor to be on the show, so thanks for having me.
Matt, take us back now a little bit, to the Cortland days, or maybe even before, and kind of how, just Reader's Digest version, kind of how you got into strength conditioning and then how you landed there at Syracuse.
Yeah, like most strength coaches, you grow up, playing sports and athletics, and you realize, you're a highly active kid, and you're always trying to stay busy, whether it be running on your own or lifting on your own. So I've always had a passion for training and stuff like that. Grew up, ironically, never played lacrosse. I was a baseball guy growing up. Played baseball and football primarily. Went upstate and played, D3 football at Cortland, upstate New York. But again, always had a passion, for training or whatever. So then, on my winter breaks, being up in Cortland, my part-time job is working at a mechanic. As a mechanic under my dad, has been a mechanic for 30 years. You see him, busting his butt and supporting 7 kids on a single income. and that kind of where I realized, whatever profession I pick, you really want to do something you love. And that's where I kind of chose to do. I didn't even think I was going to be into strength and conditioning, but I knew it was something involved with exercise science or something that I really had an interest in. So you pick your major and your exercise science, classes, and then you start to really learn about the profession and the career. And then going into my senior year at Cortland, I was in a strength and conditioning class, and my professor at the time, her name was Kristen Luther. She asked me, "Hey, do you want to do an internship? Do you have any internship spots that you have in mind?" And I was thinking about going, back home and interning back on Long Island. And she said, "Well, my husband is the director of strength and conditioning, at Syracuse. He's always looking for interns. I think you'd be a good candidate for the job. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I completely jumped at that opportunity. And if anybody knows, Hal Luther, who was the director of strength and conditioning at the time, was very, very short and to the point. So I went up there and I shook hands with Hal, and he showed me the weight room, and he said, "See you in January." And I went home, and so I interned, here at Syracuse while I was still living in Cortland, driving up every day, but in my eyes, I was, living the life, interning under, Hal Luther and Will Hicks, who's a legendary strength coach in the game right now, just to be, a fly on the wall, if you may, as interns are, and just kind of soak up, everything you can. And I just tried to do the best job I could as an intern, whether it be, scrubbing the floors, cleaning the weight room, not speaking. I don't think I spoke a word until about 2 months in. And I think that's why they liked me so much.
No question.
But again, interned there, and finished up in May, and graduated my degree. And you think you're ready to take on the world, and it's really not that easy. Coming right out of college. So I started working at a gym, and I think I had maybe 2 clients. So I was lucky enough that summer where Coach Luther called me back, and he said, "Hey, you did a great job as an intern. You want to come back up and volunteer? Here's the thing, though. We can't pay you, and we can't house you. So you have to figure something out like that. But we can feed you, and we can wash your laundry." And I think those were the 2 selling points on me coming back up. But then I started to figure out. I still had a couple buddies still going to Cortland. And I texted him. I shot him a text and said, "Hey, can I crash on your couch a couple nights a week?" And so they obliged, and so I would drive up from Cortland to Cuse every day. Volunteer. I'd work a part-time job at the Carrier Dome for some gas money and some food money, and then I'd shoot back down to Cortland and crash on my buddy's couch. I'd kind of alternate between couches. Didn't want to invade too much on my buddies. On their space, but did that for 2 semesters, and then finally moved up here a while back, so I didn't have to sleep on couches and drive up every day. But that's how I kind of found a way to just keep hanging around, and that's what they kept telling me, Coach Hicks and Coach Luther, just keep hanging around, keep finding a way to stay with us, and we'll take care of you. And so that was my first year here at Cuse, post college. And then got lucky enough where Coach Luther was moving on to take a job at the Buffalo Bills. And so at the time, I was working under them, working with football and helping with lacrosse a little bit. But I'm 23 years old, and he says, "Hey, I'm taking a job in the NFL. Lacrosse is yours." So I'm 1 year out of college, and now I just got handed, a top 5 team.
Right.
Out of college. It was a pretty intimidating experience. But again, it was a challenge that I was inviting. I was ready to go. And what greater an opportunity than to have a team of your own, passed on to you, where you can kind of put your stamp on. That's what you sign up for. That's why you do this job, is to create opportunities like that. And so I was giving lacrosse when he left, and I kept helping Coach Hicks out with football. Kept kind of moving my way up. Went from unpaid volunteer to part-time hourly. To keep moving up and getting on full time. And then the next year, I was handed women's lacrosse as well. So now I got 3 sports. College, really dove into the profession kind of head first.
Yep.
And just trying to make your own opportunities. By just busting your butt and coming to work and doing your job.
That's great, man. There's lots of good things to pull out of there. Obviously, the hard work. I mean, it doesn't matter what, where you come from, what you do, how you get into the profession. It's
right.
Always hard work that leads there, and having that modeled by your dad and, I'm sure, 6 siblings. I mean, you had to fight every day just for freaking the extra steak on the table or something. But, and I thought the other thing to pull out of there was, 2 ears and one mouth, right? You listen more than you talked. And I think that's an important lesson for young coaches, is to soak it all in. And when you do that, you learn more than you think. And we just had a conversation with our interns yesterday, about our internship, our internship. I mean, they learn a ton, and they recognize that. But there's at a point where it seems like it's Groundhog Day. It's the same day every day, and they don't realize how much they're taking away until they leave, and they're like, "Oh man, I learned this, and this, and this," and that's really what you do when you listen, and pay attention. And last thing I think that was good that you said was, you're not always ready for the next opportunity. You weren't necessarily ready to lead a top 5 team, but you rose to the challenge because you'd had 2 ears and one mouth and listened to and prepared yourself for that opportunity. So tons of great stuff there in that journey. What as a young coach and taking over a program and it's a top 5 program, I'm sure there's been lots of mistakes. What's been the biggest mistake you've made as a coach and kind of how you learn from it?
Yeah, I think definitely my biggest mistake, my first couple of years in profession is not educating myself. Once you're done with your schooling and stuff like that, you feel like you know enough, or you're ready to take on any role or any team or any athlete when you're really not. And there's so much more information out there that requires a little extra effort on your part, to go out and find that information and educate yourself and continue to educate yourself. So I think that's definitely my biggest mistake. When I first started into the profession, was not doing enough on my part to see what else other people are doing and how to do other things in a certain way. And now I've been doing this five years now. Now I think it's the most important thing you do as a strength coach is to you want to program your program and know your stuff, but as well you want to educate yourself on what else is out there that you can use that's going to help your athletes. And at the end of the day, it's about your athletes.
That's right.
If you can find something that can get them a little bit better, but it's on your part. You got to take responsibility, to go out there and kind of put a little bit more effort on your part to find that information and educate yourself. And that's something that I wish I did definitely a little bit more when I first got into it. But now I make it definitely a huge part of what I do now.
Yeah, I always talk about on the show making sure that you're learning from other people's mistakes so that you can bypass some of the manholes and the pitfalls that come about, and that's going to get you to where you want to go that much faster. And so I totally agree with that. You came out of college, you played football, you weren't really familiar with lacrosse. All of a sudden you take over this program that's perennially ranked.
Right.
How did you go about educating yourself on the needs analysis of a lacrosse player and, what's the basic program design, and then kind of talk a little bit about what that program design looks like for you now?
Absolutely. Being from Long Island, it's pretty much a hotspot of lacrosse, so I had a little bit of a background with it. So I was pretty familiar about how the game is played. But again, not playing it, that's a little bit of a disadvantage, I'd say. When you're coaching or training or programming for football, if you play football, you kind of know what you need to program. On the other hand, not playing a sport, you got to be responsible for, how do you assess what an athlete or a lacrosse athlete needs. And I think, I did when I first took over, as I attended every practice. I tried to just watch, each position or, how the offense operates, how the defense operates, how the middies operate, and what does a FOGO need to do, what does a goalie need to do, and just have your own assessment on, how they're moving and, what the duration of how long they're moving and stuff like that. So I think, just it's not only in the weight room. Once you do your stuff in the weight room, go out to practice and see who's athletic, who's slow, who's not, who needs to get a little better. And I think trying to attend every practice and just watch the sport, day in and day out, and really try to pick up the game and the sport of lacrosse is something that definitely helped me. As far as when you're looking at, the sport, I try to explain it. The best way I explain it to somebody is, it has the speed and skill of hockey with concepts of hockey and basketball on a soccer field. So the field is big, but it's fast, and it's a highly skilled sport like hockey, and it has concepts of basketball. And if you kind of put that in your mind, that's kind of what lacrosse is. It's definitely a game of runs and momentum, and it's a high-paced game. But again, there's shifts, and then there's lulls and highs and lulls. So you train for that. I look at it, having a football background, working under Coach Hicks, we know how to get guys strong. So, when I first took over lacrosse, I'm running through some basic testing, and we could get a little stronger, but then I'm looking at these guys, vertical jumps and broad jumps, and these guys are, they're not going to like me saying it, but they're not very good athletes. They're highly skilled, but they need to be more explosive.
Right.
Because I think, it's a running sport. But I looked at it in a sense where I want to get these guys strong, but I want to get them explosive, and I want to get them in very, very good shape.
Right.
Okay, so, you take what you know, and you take what you learn from football and how to program for football. And you use those. We use our big three. We're a bench squad, hand clean team. But we also use variations of each. These guys aren't football players, so do they need to bench 225 all the time? They don't. Do they have to use a bar all the time? They don't. They're not training for any combine or pro day. So we don't have to rely so much on a barbell bench press. We can use a lot of variations of a floor press or a dumbbell bench. And then again with the squat, a lot of these guys coming in don't know how to squat or don't know how to hinge right and don't know how to sit back. So I started implementing a lot of box squatting with our guys, and they really like, using the box squat. I love coaching it because I think it helps the learning process a little bit of how to move right or how to do the exercise right. And again, when you program your Olympic movement, a lot of football teams are hand clean teams. We're a hand clean team, but some guys can't do it right. They can't hinge right. They don't know how to move the bar the right way. So it's not, you just put them on the platform and expect them to do it. So you got to kind of dissect the movement. And the thing about lacrosse is, if you got a highly recruited football kid, usually he has some sort of strength and conditioning background, in high school or growing up in the recruiting process, because it's paired with football.
Right.
Lacrosse is completely different. These guys, they probably go to school, they hang out, they play lacrosse, they go home. And,
right.
It's not as paired, with the sport. So when they come in, it's a fresh piece of meat, if you will, that you can kind of mold and shape and teach,
sure,
coach, how to move right and how to do the exercise properly. And then, so we're doing our bench or some variation, our squat or some box squat variation, hand cleaner, some variation of that, met ball throws. And we're always going to do some sort of plyometric jump, and then we're going to run. Because, again, this sport is played on a big field. It's coined the fastest game on 2 feet. So you got to develop some sort of linear speed and change of direction, deceleration that you want to program as well. And basically, those 5 things are something that I don't deviate too far away from. That I'm always going to put in some sort of program that I have. So
sure. So I would say that there's not a whole lot of difference between that and maybe some of the other programs that are out there. What do you think makes your program, what you do at Syracuse, unique to the strength and conditioning community?
Well, I can definitely say or speak for my athletes that our conditioning test is probably one of the hardest conditioning tests in the country. We run 3 440-yard gassers. The length of the field is 110 yards, so we're running down, back. For time, we take a 5-minute break. We run our second. We take a 5-minute break. We run our third, and our times for that are 67 seconds, 72 seconds, and 75 seconds. with a 5-minute break in between each. And it's a tough test. It's definitely a tough test, and our guys take a lot of pride in that. You know, they see it as a little bit of a rite of passage to play here. And I think that one piece definitely separates us from a lot of programs in the country. Again, our guys take a lot of pride in it, and you know, we're trying to be the best conditioned team in the country, and they think that, or I believe, and we believe that, you know, mentally and physically, that test definitely separates us from our teams.
So to say, repeat that again. It's 400 guys. So is it 100 yards, or is it? Or are you going 110?
The 110, down back.
Okay.
So your total is 440, and again, 5-minute break in between each. And how I judge it is, you know, 214 seconds. If you add all three of the shuttles up, the time that determines if you pass or fail is 214 seconds. But I do a total time, not an individual shuttle time. So if the first shuttle's 67,
so
and
you're
you
averaging
come
it
in
out
at 69, that doesn't mean you failed the test. Because if your second is 69 and your third is 68, you're technically in pretty damn good shape.
Right.
You know, you may not just have the straight line speed to run 67 for a 440, but you're conditioned enough where you can run 3 under 70 seconds. And that's an interesting part that I got from, you know, our previous strength staff is you got to do a total time when you're doing pass or fail, because you can run the first one and you can smoke the first one. You can smoke the second one, but if you're not trained and you're not conditioned, that third one will kick your butt.
Right.
And yeah, that's why, or we see a lot of our guys that, hey, you know, you come in 1 second late on the first one doesn't mean, you know, you fail the test. You know, you can continually improve, you know, through all three. You know, and I can tell who's been running over winter break and summer break and who hasn't. And
Right.
you can tell by halfway through that second, you know, going into that third, you know, when that lactic acid starts kicking in, your legs start shutting down. But again, that's a trainable thing, and that's what we're trying to train for. We're trying to delay that onset, and it's if you train for it, it's definitely a passable test, and if you don't, it's very evident and it kicks your butt.
What do you guys do if they don't pass the test?
We do a little bit of a breakfast club type thing. You know, there's obviously some reinforcement. It's definitely a high standard we hold at Syracuse, you know, to come in and pass that test. The guys that don't, they got to do a little bit extra. And, you know, we run the test once a week until they pass. And obviously we got a couple guys, you know, some Fogos and some goalies that really have trouble passing it. So after about 3 or 4 times rerunning it, and, you know, it's clear and evident that they're not going to, you know, we work out some sort of deal where they're just doing some sort of extra work or extra cardio or extra prowler, to kind of make that up. But
yeah. How do you modify now? I mean, you kind of went over through your program design. How do you modify during the season? You know, obviously these guys they're getting banged up. They're doing lots of running, lots of volume.
Right.
You know, I'm not sure exactly. To be honest with you, I don't know much about lacrosse. How many games are they playing a week?
We play about 1 game a week, and then towards the end of the season, I'd say halfway through the season, we start playing twice a week.
Okay.
So for the first about 6 weeks of the season, we're only playing Saturday or Sunday. And then once we get about halfway through the season, we'll play either a Tuesday, Saturday, or a Wednesday, Sunday, you know, things of that nature where we're playing twice a week.
So it adds up and it's a little bit more volume. So how do you adjust your program around that?
Just leading into that, you know, our first 6 weeks of the season, you know, we're still moving a good amount of weight, you know, in the weight room, you know, obviously. And I just started doing this season, and I'm realizing, you know, the benefits of it. You know, I cut the volume way down on our big lifts, you know, and I used the percentage that, you know, we're still using at least around 70 to 80% on our box squat and our bench, but our reps are 3 or 2s. And, you know, we're still getting a good amount of weight on the bar and still moving some weight on the bar, you know, but your volume is way low. So those 6 weeks are crucial, you know, to continue with those heavy loads, you know, but just cut the volume down and setting yourself up to still be stronger late in the season. And I got guys PRing on box squats, you know, halfway through the season. And, you know, I'm starting to realize that this is a good thing right now.
Question.
So, you know, again, you cut your volume, or I started cutting my volume way down. But, you know, you still want strength for strength and maintain or even build on some strength. And those first 6 weeks of the season are crucial. So you can still get your big three in early in the week, and that's what we do. We usually do a big three early in the week. As we move down towards game time, we're tapering, and once you start playing, the Wednesday or Sunday or those midweek games, you cut down on your big squats, or you cut out some stuff that's going to really keep them heavy-legged. And I've been doing a lot of soft tissue, foam rolling and lax balls. There's no shortage of those, to get some release and keep these guys fresh. And the tough part about that is to get them to buy into it.
Right.
And if you're dinged up and you're sore and all you're going to do is complain about it, you're not doing any good.
Right.
Get on a foam roller, get on a lax ball. Keep rolling yourself out. Getting some contrast therapy and some tubs, and trying to get your kids to really buy into that recovery mode of it. Because you're coaching all your stuff in the weight room, but you also got to coach recovery as well.
No question.
And you want to keep them as fresh as possible, especially. An old strength coach used to say it's the price you want to pay if you want to dance in May. And that's where every lacrosse team wants to be, is you want to be playing on Memorial Day. But again, it's the stuff you do in March and April that sets you up for that.
No question. Well, buddy, we end the show here with some resources. Give us the best piece of coaching advice you ever received.
I'll give you two. My old high school football coach used to always say, as you move on through your life, you leave, but your legacy stays. And you always want to know what your legacy is. And that should be a huge driving force of everything that you do. So that's something that I always try to live by is as I move on, wherever you go, your legacy stays. So you're trying to make your legacy as best as you can. And another piece of advice, one of my coaches in college, he went from level to the NFL in 2 years, and he used to always say, it doesn't matter, how you got to where you are or where you are, as long as the lights come on, you're ready to go. And it's something that I know that he used, and it's something that I still use today. When you're seizing opportunities, and like we said earlier, I don't know if I was ready, to take on a program when I was 23, but I was, inviting the challenge and ready to go. So. Those are two pieces of advice that I try to use every day.
Oh, that's great, man. Give us a book, app, and website recommendation.
Book, Die Empty by Todd Henry. I read that about 2 years ago, and I still use some of the quotes in that book every day. You don't want to die with your best work still inside it. And it's really about emptying yourself every day and acting with urgency and diligence, and his whole thing is run to the battle. And you want to define your battle and then run to the battle and act with urgency and diligence. And those two things can really motivate you. After I'm reading the book and I want to run through a brick wall while I'm reading it. It's one of those books that really gets you hyped up and ready to go. And I think as a strength coach, it's a huge piece that you could use definitely as a strength coach. So.
Yeah, that's good.
An app, anything on Twitter. I try to stay on Twitter. There's a lot of stuff, being posted. If you follow some good guys on Twitter, you get a lot of information on Twitter. And then a website, anything on Strength Performance Network. Those videos out there, just seeing what other coaches and other teams are doing. Quick videos, a couple videos every day. Just seeing what's out there and seeing what other teams are doing keeps you fresh and keeps more tools in your toolbox.
Yep. Well, man, this has been great, man. Like I said, I didn't know much about lacrosse, and definitely I always try to put myself in those shoes where, I've for the most part, I've been a football strength coach my whole life.
Yep.
Or at least my whole professional life, and never really working with other sports, and so taking on a sport that you don't know, that you all of a sudden it's the highest level, and I've always wondered how I would handle that type of situation, and obviously you were handling it fantastic there and continue to do great things, and it took away a bunch of good stuff in this one, man. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Coach, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.